You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us, along with Kelly Spann, attorney, business entrepreneur extraordinaire. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We met a couple months ago recently, and as bits and pieces of your story came out, I was like, wow, this is a podcast episode, not only from your success as an attorney, layer in what we'll talk about, I'm sure, your strategic entrepreneurship there, but also your journey on where you're at today, I think is so interesting and inspiring on many levels. Not to mention, many of us, not all of us women, but many of us professional women have children and a family too.
Yes.
And here you are just rocking it in law, franchise, litigation, et cetera. You're the expert. So glad to have you on today.
Well, thank you. That's quite the introduction, because I definitely don't feel like I'm rocking it 9 times out of 10. But
well, I'm sure as we go along, maybe either you'll think of things that you're like, wow, I haven't really thought about that, or other people will think that. But yes, I agree with you. And I don't want to jump to, maybe this is a woman thing, but there's oftentimes people will tell me, oh my gosh, I listened to that podcast. It was so awesome. I forget I have a podcast. Or, how do you do this, this, and this? And you're just like, I don't know. Every day I get up, what has to be done today?
Yep, 100%. I just keep moving forward.
And it's got to be the way, as I mentioned, you're an attorney, but you don't have work with just one law firm. You've got a couple of firms, businesses going.
I do. I have 3 different law firms that I own, manage, and run.
And one, I know that was intriguing to me, which I think may be a buzzword out there, is like franchise.
Yes.
And people who think about starting a business and a franchise, it sounds just so sexy and exciting, and I'm going to make it big and be successful. So I know we'll get into that. I know that's one lane. What are the 3, or what are the differences between the 3?
So the one firm is all franchise related. That's Spann. I do everything on the behalf of the franchisees. So in the franchise world, there's the franchisor, which is what you think of when you think of like McDonald's, right? And the franchisees are the people who own all the individual locations and territories. So I solely represent franchisees. I do nothing on the franchisor side in that firm. And then I have TM Law and Associates, which does trademark and copyright law. And then I have True Estate Planning, which does estate planning and probate.
So that's a lot of law.
Yes.
Why break those 3 up?
Because they're 3 vastly different practices, right? So in this, I'm sure we'll get into this more, but it was not my original intention. My original intention was one firm, Spann, with franchise only and some trademark litigation. That was it. And I had a partner at that firm at that time, John Fortman. And then I started basically advising other attorneys on their trademark litigation stuff. And one of those attorneys happened to be Annette Heller. And long story short, she was like, why don't we form a partnership with my firm? We did. We rebranded to TM Law, and that was the second firm. And then the third one came along because I noticed this void in the marketplace. And in particular with estate planning, I noticed it was either do it yourself, online, biowill.com, or most attorneys were charging $4,000 plus for basic estate plans. And I was like, wait a minute, there's this huge middle market that is completely void of options. So I put my business hat on and I was like, hey, can I do this, charge what I want to charge, and run a third firm? And at that point, I was already running 2. So I was like, what's the third? Kind of like a kid, like after you have 2, what's the third? So I did. I figured it out. I figured out I could charge what I wanted to charge, so your average middle class to lower income family could afford estate planning, and hired an attorney and set off on the third firm. So I went from one firm to 3 in 3 years.
And I will say, in what I do for my real full-time job on the estate side of things, you're right. There's often people say, well, I'll just get that online.
Right.
I was like, ooh,
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. And it's not one size fits all. It won't work everywhere. There will be pieces missing. Yet I know many people are trying to get over that hurdle of the cost for
Correct.
a set of documents that may not even matter, quote unquote, may not
Right.
even matter till I die, et cetera, et cetera. And there's so much more to it. So
Yes.
there is a certain, I think, mindset and hurdle to get over, like I said, when thinking about estate planning. So putting on that business hat and saying, let's fill that void and get people what they want is, I see the same side of the table maybe
Right.
with you.
Yeah.
So some people might say, why not put all three together? Because you've got overhead, like use the same overhead. Wouldn't it be better from a cost perspective and a marketing perspective and a whatever?
So most people do, especially other attorneys, look at me like I have three heads when I say I have three firms, because they think the same thing. Why don't you shove them all together? Because that's what firms do, right? That's why you have these massive firms that have all these different departments. And, could I? Yes. Would it save me a lot of time? Probably. But strategically, they're all three vastly different practices, right? And when I had the first one, I had a partner. Well, that partner wasn't the same as the one in my second firm, right? And then the third one came along and I was like, well, what am I going to do with this? And if you think about marketing, the way I market for the franchise stuff is vastly different than the trademark stuff. It's vastly different from estate planning. Like trademark and franchise are nationwide. Estate planning is just local, St. Louis metropolitan area and into Illinois. So they're all different target clients. They're all different trademarks. Every single firm has its own name, its own website, its own phone number, its own client list, its own everything. And the idea is, one, it makes it easier for me to target what I'm looking for that particular firm. It also makes it easier for me to I've been afforded many blessings from other people. My partners at both of the firms, John and Annette, have been incredibly gracious to me over the years, and I want to do that for another attorney as well, right? So if I bring in an attorney in my franchise firm, they don't care about the trademark firm. They don't care about the estate planning stuff. I can bring them in and they can work their way up and earn ownership interest, and then they have their own firm ready to go. And I don't have to worry about dividing it out later, which is a nightmare, right? The clients only know a certain phone number. They only know a certain website. Well, now the clients are in their own little individual boxes. So I bring in an attorney under the trademark firm and they earn ownership interest over time. And then eventually the firm is theirs and they can do whatever they want with it. And I have that times 3 now. So it was set up strategically like that. 1, for marketing, and 2, for my exit strategy, because as much as I love the practice of law, which I truly do, I am very blessed that I absolutely love what I do. I can't do it forever, and I have to have an exit strategy. And, I've been the exit strategy for 2 people now, right? And I want to be that. I want to provide the same to somebody else or multiple people eventually.
It's interesting because it sounds, 1, outside of the box, 2, very long-term thinking, and 3, to be able to pay it forward, what you received, help, guidance, support, that path for you to be able to then find the right people to partner with and eventually be able to, exit, as you said, and they've got something to thrive for, search for.
Absolutely. I love, a lot of people, what I tell them is you have to think outside the box, right? Like, don't do everything everybody else is doing. Do it your way, right? Like, I don't show up in a suit and in formal attire at every single meeting. I will show up in nice jeans, heels, and a nice sweater because I want my clients to feel comfortable. I want them to feel relaxed. And quite frankly, I don't need to put on a suit to activate my brain, which is what you're paying an attorney for. My brain works in my pajamas, in a suit, and whatever. And I tell clients all the time, the second you make me put on a suit, that means I'm going to court, which means it is vastly more expensive for you. So if I can stay casual, it's to your benefit.
So I'm sitting here thinking, both in what I do professionally, but in law, the attorneys I know, like you said, the law firms, those big ones, small ones, whatever, like we dress the part.
Yep.
So confidence to say, I know who I am, whatever the package looks like, and in that confidence to say, I'm going to show up as I am. Where does that come from in your field?
I don't know, because I never really thought of it that way, to be honest. I feel like I am what I would want. If I was looking for an attorney, I feel like I'm exactly what I would be looking for, right? I want somebody who is genuine. I want somebody who is honest. And quite frankly, nobody wants to go to an attorney, right? It's like the last thing anybody wants to do. Most of the time, it's the first thing you need to do, but it's the last thing anybody wants to do. And generally, people don't come to me when things are going well, right? So I want to be genuine in who I am. And I just truly believe, I don't care what industry you're in, if you're genuinely true to yourself, the client that you would like to attract will naturally be attracted to you, right? Like I tell people all the time, if you want a suit and a marble lobby in a multi-story building, there's a ton of attorneys out there that will fit that role for you. If you want somebody who's going to answer the phone and give you real life practical advice, that's me, right? And there are other attorneys out there like me. I just happen to, I guess it's probably honestly over 20 years of experience in the legal industry at this point that I figured out that I was like, you know what? Like, that's honestly why I did law school. I was like, if these guys can do it, I for sure can do it. Like, there's no way because we'll get to that. But I already did everything an attorney did, minus talk to a judge or take depositions. I did everything an attorney did before I ever went to law school. Which is the whole mentorship, why I think it's so important. I did all that. So I just remember looking at him going, wow, even in a suit, you're still not smart. Like the suit is not making you a great attorney. It's your personality, it's your brain, it's your intellect, it's your ability to see everything around the situation is what makes you a great attorney. And, I can look at a contract and go, yeah, that's a breach of contract. And in some cases, my response will be, but who cares? Right? And when you have a grown man sitting across the table from you, losing everything, and this is talking about the franchise world in this particular scenario, and they're losing everything. Their marriage is crumbling, they're facing bankruptcy, and then they're sitting there worried about breaching a contract. And I have to sit there and go, who cares? Well, what are they going to sue me? Maybe, but at least you're making them work for the money at this point. Right now, you're just paying them and you're getting nothing in return, right? So sometimes the legal answer doesn't necessarily match the real life answer. And, balancing those two, that's what a great attorney does. It's not just, here's your legal answer. It's here's your legal answer. Now let's fit it into your life and figure out what is best for you, because breaching the contract might be what's best for you.
I want to make sure we come back to that story later because, one, I think it's a real life story, and I'm sure you have many of those.
Many.
Two, it's get into that franchise world, which I think is a neon sign buzzword, but maybe a lot of people don't know the nuances and intricacies.
100%.
What you were mentioning there was, hey, I've done law forever. I've seen all these attorneys do it. I'm just as smart, if not smarter. Yet, as we talk here, and I think many people are my age or around that, we had to adapt and pivot in life because the world changes, new jobs come up,
Yep.
and what you set out to be at 20 does not define what you have to be at 40 or 50 or whatever. So your story is one about kind of the pivoting and the changing and the saying, you know what, I'm going to get through the hard stuff because this is what I want to do in life. You haven't been an attorney forever.
Correct. I have pivoted more times than I could count, to be honest. And actually, it's one of the things I tell my clients when we're heading into litigation. I'm like, you're just going to have to be okay with pivoting, because I could do 100 million what ifs, right? But until you make that first move, you don't know where you're pivoting to. So just be ready to pivot. I have pivoted endless times and just followed whatever path life has thrown at me. So my first major pivot was I was a pregnant senior in high school. I got pregnant at 17. I had my baby at 18. And my life obviously dramatically pivoted. And I started working, I was going to college part-time, and I was working at an accounting firm. And we get through tax season, and at this firm, there's an attorney who has office space behind my desk. And we just been friendly because he paces a lot. So we just got friendly, talking or whatever. And one day his assistant quit. Well, it just so happened that tax season had also just ended. So I was like, hey, I have a couple extra hours. I can help you, stay on top of filing and answering the phones and stuff like that until you find somebody.
I love that you offered, by the way. You raised your hand and you offered. You sought that out.
Yes. Yep. And he was like, that would be great. So I start working for him. He interviewed a couple people. It wasn't really working out. And I always joke, I don't know if I was so bored at looking at numbers, but it was fascinating to me. Like, I was instantly hooked. It did something to my brain. And I was like, wow, I just loved learning all the little intricacies of law and everything he was doing. Thought it was fascinating. So fast forward, I don't know, maybe 2 months of me doing that, and he still had not found anybody. And I was like, what do you think about hiring me? And it just so happened the person I was working for at the accounting firm was a friend of my mom's and also a friend of him. So he was like, I'm in, but we have to clear it through this friend. And we did, and it worked out fantastic. So I started working for him full time almost 21 years ago. And as an 18-year-old with a baby, and we went from this 20 by 20 foot room where my desk was literally behind the door.
There's only so much pacing you can do in that room.
Yeah, like that's why he paced out by me, because there's no pacing in that room. So anytime somebody opened the door to the office, it literally hit me. I was like right behind the door. But we went from that one little room over the years to a nationwide law practice, and eventually bought our own building, and we just grew dramatically over the course of, at that point, it was about 15 years, I would say, in. I did everything. Like, I ran everything. I did all the accounting. I did the website. I did the marketing. Everywhere John Fortman, that's the name of him. He's my partner. Everywhere he went, every phone call he had with clients, every hearing he went to, every deposition he went to, I was there and I absorbed everything. I helped us niche, so for a while there, we were general practice. I've done everything with him from a traffic ticket to class action and everything in between. So I tell everybody, I know enough to be really dangerous. Not necessarily good, but I know a lot of different areas of law and enough to be dangerous in them. But what happened is a judge friend of ours had a sister who bought a franchise. And this was after we had a ton of real estate clients, and then the 2008 crash happened. And then we pivoted again, and we got a franchise case that nobody else would take. She literally called us because nobody would take her sister's case. And we were
Why
like,
is that? Was it just so hard or weird, or franchising's hard?
Yes. So franchise law is, what it boils down to is essentially a 300-page contract that's written in favor of the franchisor. And it's very complex. There's a lot of moving parts. And there's not many attorneys out there that do what we do. There's a ton of attorneys that will represent the franchisor, but there's not very many that will do it on the franchisee side. So we looked at it and we're like, you know what? Let's give it a go. And we did, and we had a group of franchisees, and we sued the franchisor, and were successful. And it quickly exploded after that.
What made you successful or be able to step in where no one else thought they could?
Looking at things from a different point of view, and looking at them in great detail, and not just saying, oh, it looks standard, right? That contract looks standard. Oh, that contract's written against you. You're right, it is. But is there a loophole? What else can we do to think strategically outside of it, right? Like, I'll go through actually the next case that we took, the next huge case that we took. We won an entire case off of one word in a 200-page contract. It was a single word. And all the word was reasonable. And all we had to do is ask the jury, is what they did reasonable? But no other attorneys would touch it, much less litigate on it. Because if you look at the contract, it looks all one-sided, right? Like, how are we going to, they say they may advertise at their discretion. That's next to impossible to sue on because it's entirely at their discretion. But if you throw things in there, like our reasonable discretion, the question is it reasonable? But everybody skipped over that one word. And that's the word that we hooked onto, and we won. We actually took a case of, there's like 58 plaintiffs. We went down to Texas for 4 weeks. The trial ended up lasting, it was supposed to last 4 weeks. It ended up ending early, about 2 weeks in. And we ended up with a 8-figure judgment in that case. And when I say it exploded after that, it exploded real quick. But it's just looking at cases differently, thinking outside the box. I will tell clients sometimes the answer is not in a lawsuit, right? Sometimes the answer is in media. Sometimes it's in negotiations. Sometimes it's in strategic things like bankruptcy. There's all different things that we can do. And actually my line that other people give me trouble over is I tell clients, my go-to line is, the good news is you have options. The bad news is they're all bad. And everybody's like, why in the world would you tell a client that? And I'm like, because they need to know that, right? Like, these people are often coming to me, and I'm, kid you not, are losing everything. And they are in a terrible mental state. And they truly don't feel like they have any options. And I tell them that because they need to hear it. They need to hear you do have options. They're not all good, right? But you have to choose the best of the bad to get to good again, right? And it's like going through a divorce. Nobody wants to do it. It's not fun. But you have to do it to get through it to get to good again. Same thing happens in litigation. Sometimes you have to do it to get to good again. And sometimes you just need to close down, file bankruptcy to get to good again.
That's a good, just general life business advice, that sometimes all you have in front of you are not great decisions.
Yeah.
And which one's the one you're going to take, the best of those options, to get to the best alternative on the other side.
Yep. Unfortunately, over the years, we have seen, and this is particular to franchise stuff, I have seen endless bankruptcies, endless divorces, and suicide over these things. And so when I talk to these people and they are at the lowest point in their life, it is so crucial for them to understand that it's not them, right? Like in this circumstance, it is not them. Your marriage is not worth this franchise. Your life is not worth this franchise. Is there financial damage? Yes. Am I ever going to be able to help you recover 100% from it? Absolutely not. There's no way, even if I sue, there's no way I'm going to get you 100% of your losses back. It's not going to happen. But we can try to get you some, and we can try to recover from there. And, you know, I've had to do that more times than I care to tell you.
Yeah, and I sit here, the accounting's brain, the sunk costs. Mm-hmm. That's where my brain goes. So those costs that you've already put in that you can't necessarily recoup. So don't hang on to those. And I'm thinking of both financially, but also mentally, emotionally, those decisions that have already been made, those actions, events that have already happened. Don't hang on to those anymore. Try to release, learn from, release, but move forward. And the way forward is not to hold on so tight to what you thought should happen. But if I just stay in it longer, again, franchise, career, the company you work for, the leader you work for, you started your own business, relationships, those kinds of things.
Absolutely, 100%. It's the classic phrase, it's hindsight's 2020. It's easy to look back and go, how did I fall for this, right? Like, how did I get myself into this situation? It's so easy to do that. And whether that's a franchise, relationship, anything, right? Hindsight is 2020. It's so easy to look back and go, what the heck did I do? The difference is when you look forward, it's that perspective, right? And switching people's perspective, instead of looking at it like, oh, I lost XYZ, look at it, I learned ABC. It's the same thing. You're just saying it a different way in your brain, and it changes everything.
And I think that's what sometimes mires people in the past is that's what they know. Mm-hmm. Versus I've got this whole potential future. I have no idea what this is going to mean, what it's going to look like,
right?
How am I going to feel, the financial situation. So maybe if I just wait longer, pour into this more, it'll work out.
Yep.
Maybe eventually woulda, shoulda, coulda kind of deal versus cut it, say, you know what, that it is what it is. Here's what I learned from it. Now I'm taking all that and moving on to brighter and better.
Absolutely.
But it's that fear of unknown and uncertainty, I think, that can be so controlling or tethering you.
Absolutely. Back. Yes. And especially, and hate saying this, but in today's day and age where life moves so quickly, right? Everything, it happens at a rapid pace. And the next thing you know, you're a year in going, how did I even get here? Right? Like, I went from one firm to 3 in 3 years, and I still have no idea how I got there. It happened so quickly, but it's taking what you know and using it to pivot for your future. And it's much easier said than done. It is very difficult to do. There's a lot of outside factors that go into it, which is why I tell people the best attorney advice I can give is I'm taking into consideration those outside factors, right? Like, do we have health conditions that we have to worry about? Do we have minor children that we have to worry about? Like, what is going on in your world that affects what we're going to do? And I feel that way as a business owner. I feel that way as an attorney. It's taking what I know and pivoting towards the future and doing it in a way that stays true to me. And because nobody's ever going to be me. I'm never going to be you. And the whole point, and what I tell my kids all the time is like, you have to be the best version of you. Any attorney that comes to my office and works in my office, any staff that I hire, I don't need you to be me. I don't want you to be me. I want you to be the best version of you. right? I have an attorney at my estate planning firm. He's so smart. He's great. He's a great attorney. He's a great person. He does not do well public speaking. It's like a major source of anxiety for him. He does good in, like, you know, some people are really good at small talk and they can get, he struggles with it, right? My husband's the same way. It's like pulling teeth. He's like, well, what am I going to talk about? I don't know. Talk about anything, right? Like, but I can talk to a wall. So I don't have that issue, but that's me. You just have to figure out the best version of you. Like, you can't network the way I do. You have to figure out, how does networking work for you? Stop trying to be somebody else. Because if you keep trying to do that, you're going to struggle, and you're always going to be second guessing everything. Like, because you're never going to feel fully satisfied because you're not being genuine to who you are. So if I'm out here trying to be like every other attorney, I'm going to get burnt out real quick because it's not me.
It's tiring and exhausting.
It is.
Trying to be someone, something else, that mask, the right hair, the right clothes, the right whatever, versus...
Yeah.
I saw a post, a Brene Brown post about, you know, your candle, and have people around you who are willing to protect your light and your candle and basically your essence and your soul, and make sure that both you and those around you aren't trying to blow it out. So I think to that point, don't blow out your own candle. Yeah. Like, be you, and people are going to be attracted to that and want to work with it.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that people are, it's usually not other people blowing out your candle. It's usually you. And what's funny is that other people can't blow out your candle unless you let them. So unfortunately for what I do in litigation, when I say attacked, I mean attacked frequently. I have been told I'm an idiot. I've been told I don't know what I'm doing. I've been told I can't possibly know that because your bar license is only 2021. I can't, constantly.
Is that why they do that? Because they can, even though you've been practicing law forever, which we kind of went back to some of the stories, you decided, I'm going to go back, I'm going to go to law school, I'm going to pass the bar, I'm going to be an official attorney. Is that why they treat you that way?
Yeah, 100%. So in litigation, some of it's intimidation factors. Right? Some of it is, for whatever reason, some attorneys are just plain mean. And they often look up other attorneys. It's a very common practice in the attorney world. They will look up the other attorney to see who are they up against. And they base their opinion off of their quote unquote resume. Well, if you look at mine, it's incredibly deceiving because truly, somebody who graduated in 2021, when you graduate law school, you do not know how to be an attorney.
It's so much in life, right?
It's crazy.
You graduate school and it's on the job.
You do not know how to do anything. You don't know how to draft a lawsuit. You don't know how to file a lawsuit. You don't know how to sign up a client. You don't know how to talk to clients. You don't know how to take a deposition. You don't know how to, you don't know how to do anything. You know why, the fundamentals of everything, but you don't know how to actually practice.
Real life application.
Absolutely not. So when you go out and you look at my resume, it says my bar license is 2021. So they assume that I'm like every person who graduated in 21 and have no idea what I'm actually doing.
Do you think that's a benefit to you? An advantage maybe for those that...
Yes, it usually is, because usually they quickly figure it out, but usually it's too late for them that I do know what I'm doing, because I have almost 21 years of legal experience and in-depth legal experience. I actually, so back up a minute. What made me decide to go to law school is John came to me one day and he's like, I'm going to want to retire, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, shoot, I guess I'm going to law school. I didn't say shoot. I said the actual word. if I'm being honest. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to law school because I'm not working for these idiots. Like,
and you were how old at this time?
Early 30s. How old am I now?
I know, right?
I really think about this. It was early 30s because I had the littlest was about a year old. Actually, when I started the process, I was probably 28, right around there, because I did have to finish my bachelor's degree. I never had finished it because I had, in that time span, I had my first child, met my husband, got married, had my second child. So that's where I am at that stage in life. And I had never finished my bachelor's degree. So I had to finish that online, which I used Western Governors University. And it was fantastic because it's a flat fee for the semester and you can test out of classes. So you have to take a minimum. I had to take a minimum of 12 credit hours, but I could take as many credit hours as I wanted. And so I think in the first semester, I took like 28 credit, like something crazy, like a crazy high number, because you could just test out. So I finished my whole bachelor's degree in like less than 18 months because you could test out of everything. It was fantastic. And then I went to law school, graduated. I went to law school full time, worked full time, and had 3 kids at that point because my baby, who is now 9, was a baby when I started law school. And I do not recommend.
I was just thinking in my head, do I ask how'd you do it?
No, the only way I did it was I do have a great support system. But really, honestly, the answer is lack of sleep. For 3 years straight, I maybe got 4 hours of sleep a night, which is why I don't recommend it, because in hindsight, I didn't realize as a woman how much we actually need sleep to regulate our entire bodies and our hormones and everything else. So I paid for it dearly in body issues afterwards. But when I graduated, I took the bar exam. The day I passed the bar exam, John swore me in at the office, and we rebranded, and Spann was born that exact same day. So it's, when you look at my resume, because other attorneys always look up other attorneys, when you look at that, it's very deceiving, because you would assume that I don't know. I know what every person who graduated in 2021 knows. And I don't. I know vastly more. I know more than most attorneys that I've worked with over the years. I shouldn't say most attorneys in general, because there's definitely attorneys who know more than I do. But I know more than the average person when it comes to practicing law and running firms, for sure. So it is very deceiving on paper.
And, your stories there, talk about one, help. I think it's either women don't often get it, or we don't ask for it, we don't accept it, or whatever. Again, put your head down, get the work done, power through, to the detriment of you that you may not even see in the short run. It may take a while for you to even realize. So having that support both at home, but then having been blessed or manifested or brought in the energy of others who saw something in you, who supported you and mentored you, taught you, coached you in a way to say, I want to help. I see the potential. Come with me. Let's do this, build this. To then flip that into, you had then a good leader, and you're a good leader in some of the content that you shared already of be yourself, be true to yourself. You're not going to change anybody else. Like, that's a lot of awesomeness packaged together all in one.
Thank you. It's, you're not wrong in that it was very difficult for me to ask for help. And actually, an attorney friend of mine, so after I graduated law school, I joined attorney ownership groups because I already knew as soon as I passed the bar, I was going to own the firm. And I was looking at trying to just like pick other people's brains, right? Like, I wanted to know what other people were doing, not so I could do what they're doing, but so that I could modify it to what I want to do. And Anyway, so I was talking to him about it, and I was just like, I am overwhelmed. Like, I don't even know, like, there's so much to do. And this is when I only had one firm. And I was like trying to figure out, like, I couldn't figure out, like, it just was like almost paralysis because it was so overwhelming. And we were trying to make the big decision. Do we jump from a general practice that happens to specialize in franchise law to a practice that solely does franchise law? And when you're turning away money to do that, it's terrifying, right? Because running a law firm is not cheap. So it's terrifying. But I was sitting there and we're talking to him, and he's like, well, and he turns the table on me and he goes, let me ask you this. We talk about, this is where you started, and you put on this hat, and you put on this hat, and you put on this hat, and you started adding all these different roles to the role of attorney and owner. He goes, what hat have you taken off? And I was like, none. I for years, I just kept adding hats. I never took off my hat and handed it to somebody else. And it was a light bulb moment for me that I was going to basically stifle myself if I didn't start learning to hand hats to other people. Because I was so busy trying to drag everybody up the ladder with me rather than teaching them to climb with me, right? Like, I was pulling them, like, just come up with me. And they're all like, let me just help you. And once I figured out, I'm still struggle with it, if I'm being fully honest. The art of delegation is not my strongest suit, because I'm very much a doer. But I realize I'm not going to be able to pull everybody up with me, but I can teach them to climb with me.
Is that, I think that's a great analogy and a great visual. I sit here and think, okay, what's the difference then? And is it that delegation of pulling them up and having them climb with you? Is that delegation? What's the differentiator in changing what track you're on there?
So the way I look at it is, some people look at delegation as just, here, do this task because it's too mundane for me, or it's too minor for me, and it's, below me. I look at delegation now like, the only way my people are going to learn and grow is if I start giving them stuff to learn and grow with, right? My staff, which this is another thing that I do differently than most attorneys that run their firms, I have not hired, other than the attorney, obviously, all of our support staff has zero legal experience. Zero. Everybody's like, why in the world would you hire somebody who doesn't have legal experience? And I'm like, I can train the law. What I can't train is, are you a good human being? Do you have a good work ethic? I can't train those things, but I can train everything else. So that's what I hire for: good human being and good work ethic. Because I often joke that my law offices have no HR policy. The only policy I have is don't be a dick. And if you can't follow that rule, there's the door. I'm not interested. I shouldn't have to make you watch seminars and webinars and how to be a decent human being. That is not my role. I'm not your parent. I am your employer. I am your friend. I will teach you how to practice law. I will teach you how to run a law firm. But I can't teach you how to be a good human being. So, especially with small firms, I don't have time for that. Go somewhere else. So that's kind of the way I hire. But then I started to learn, and I'm just open and honest with my staff. They know I'm not a good delegator because I told them, hey, I'm not great at this. I'm also not the best quote unquote trainer because I take for granted what I know. So if I'm telling you something, just stop me and say, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, Kelly. because I don't like, to me, I feel like I'm explaining it, but to you, you're like, it's a foreign language.
You
right?
just skipped 4 steps in there.
Yes, 100%. So I just tell my staff, like, if you see me doing something that you think, hey, that is something I can do, just tell me. Because oftentimes I'm going so quickly at such a rapid pace that I often don't think, oh, wait, that's something Brittany could do. Or, oh, wait, that's something Beth could do. So if you see it, just stop me, right? You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not, like, it's not going to happen. So I think as a leader, one of the things is being vulnerable, is showing that you're not perfect and showing them this is where I struggle with, and I need your help with it. And, you know, giving them the resources and opportunities, and just, it truly has been life-changing for me, and for them. It's been, or at least that's what they tell me. It's been actually this morning, where I was talking to Brittany, who's one of my office managers, and I was talking about networking and how Beth, who is, I call her my office mom, she does a little bit of everything. She does a lot of my networking for me now. And I was like, I told her, you know, I used to do all that. She goes, how? I was like, I honestly don't know. I keep handing off hats and I still feel like the hats keep growing. Like, I have no idea how I was carrying so many hats before, because now I have so many people doing stuff. And it's just looking back, like, how in the world did I don't know. I just did. Like you said, you just wake up, what do I need to do? And you start taking those steps. And sometimes it's paralyzing, right? Because your to-do list is huge. But the only thing you can do is take a step and start checking something off a box and figuring it out. And for the love of God, ask for help. Like, it is, I actually do teach the incoming staff, the incoming attorneys. I do a lot of like mentorships with students that are getting ready to graduate, just talking to them about what it means to be an attorney, what to look for. Like, don't pigeonhole yourself into a certain practice, right? Because a lot of them come out of law school and they get stuck at a personal injury attorney firm or a family law firm, and they don't like either one, but they're stuck there because that's all they know. So just talking about how to avoid those kinds of circumstances. But I tell them, I think a lot of the confidence that I get is because I'm confident that I don't know everything. I'm confident that I will make mistakes. And it's just perspective, right? Like, I'm not confident that I'm right. I'm confident that I will screw up. And once you change that mental perspective, you're just like, okay. And you go forward and you're not scared to ask for help, because you can't possibly know everything. It is literally impossible. It's one of the reasons why I love law, by the way, is because you will never know everything. It is constant learning. It's constantly evolving. Like, it's fascinating to me. For everybody else, it's probably boring, but that I'm confident that I don't know. And if you're confident in what you don't know, you are automatically more confident in what you do. And it will naturally show that way. I tell people, like, the court clerks, they know a ton. The paralegal or litigation assistant at the big firm for the attorney that you keep talking to probably knows more. So if you don't know, ask the person who does. And it's mind-blowing. And it's the more information and knowledge that you can absorb and then twist it to your business, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, figuring out what somebody else does, You don't want to be that person. You want to take a grain of what they do and a grain of what that person does and that person, and then modify it so that you are different. Because if you're like everybody else, it's so hard to market, right? Especially depending on what you do. And like what you do, it's highly competitive. You have to figure out how to be the best version of you so that you attract, because you're different, right? And the one comment that I get pretty regularly, and it's, to me, it's one of the biggest compliments that I've probably received, is you're so refreshing. Because they're used to a stereotypical attorney role. And then they come to me and I'm like, I'll flat out tell them, like, you don't even need me. You can do this on your own. There's literal videos on how to do it online. You don't need me. Just do it yourself. But I've spent a lot of time over the years, creating an image that is genuinely who I am. And it's just different than what people expect when you talk to an attorney.
A lot of great just life lessons, business lessons, and all that you said there. It's like, no matter how amazing you are, you only have so much capacity. So you're going to be capped out. So in order to go further, you need to be pulling those people in, delegating. And when you delegate, like what you had talked about, is being totally open and with your intentions, your own setbacks, that, hey, call me out on this, please. I welcome it. Not just a kind of on the surface, oh, if you need anything, let me know. But no, really, hey, I'm not good at this. Call me out, take it from me, do whatever you have to do. I mean, that's a real working relationship where there's that trust, and they know that you're in it for them too, to be there for them. And it's not a one-sided, you're here to work for me.
Yes.
And I'm going to make as much money as I can. And you're a revolving door sort of thing. So many great pieces and wisdom and all that, and be who you are. And I also love the idea of taking that fresh perspective where if you just go talk to that other attorney, and you're an attorney, you might be coming at it from the same direction. But if you talk to other layers in the group, which is that paralegal or that clerk, they may give you just a totally different perspective that you can turn.
Yep, absolutely. It's fascinating to me, especially in the attorney world. People in general like to pretend they know, and they're terrified to be wrong. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, people literally pretend to know stuff all the time. I'm like, why?
Don't do it. If you're catching on, don't do it.
Why? You actually gain so much power and persuasion when you actually admit that you don't know something. And or even better, how about you admit when you're wrong? You gain so much more respect and so much more power by doing so. It's fascinating. And I tell a lot of attorneys this, and my staff, is if you say, like, somebody's coming to you with a problem, and you're like, and you just pretend like you know the answer, right? When you actually don't. You start down a path that you can't really undo. But if you sit there and say, you know what, that's actually a really great question, I'm going to have to do some research. I don't know the answer to it. Now, when you go and tell them the answer on a different thing, they actually know that you know the answer. They will trust your guidance significantly more than if you pretend like you actually know the answer, and you start leading them down a path that you cannot undo, especially in law, right? The other thing is admitting when you're wrong. One of my stories that I tell law students when they're coming to me, I'm like, don't argue just to be arguing. It's literally, it's a waste of the client's money. It's a waste of your time, and you're not gaining any respect from anybody by doing it. And the story I give is, so we had this case where there were several parties that were named as defendants. And this other attorney, without talking to me, without anything, because I'm opposing counsel, filed a motion to remove one of the parties and filed this memorandum of law, and which we call it a brief, which, by the way, there's literally nothing brief about it. Like, it's nothing brief at all. Noticed it up for hearing. Does all of this stuff. I never filed a response at all because he's right. So we show up at the hearing, and whoever files the motion starts, he starts the hearing. The judge is listening to his arguments, and he turns to me, the judge does, and he goes, Miss Spann, and he's looking down. He's like, do you have any counter? Because you didn't file a counter response. And I go, that's because he's right. And the judge looked up directly at me, and he had the biggest smile on his face, and he was like, well, that's a first. And I was like, and the poor opposing counsel had no clue what to do. Like, he was totally thrown off. And the judge was like, I was like, had he just called me, I would have agreed to just dismiss the defendant. Like, he's right. And the judge looks back at the opposing counsel, and he said, Mr. So-and-so, and he's like, so I win? And he goes, yeah, by default. He goes, but I think the lesson is perhaps you should just call her next time. She seems entirely reasonable. And the reason why I tell that story to the new attorneys is when the next time I'm in front of that judge, one, he remembers who I am. Still to this day, I had to go to the courthouse the other day, and I walked down the hallway, and there's like a back judicial hallway where the attorneys can go. And he happened to be walking down, and he was like, Miss Spann. And I was like, hey, Judge, how are you? So one, he remembers me. And two, when I show up to argue in front of him, the next hearing we had, and I showed up to argue, he knew I was actually arguing because I truly believed that I was right. And I got so much more power from doing that. It's amazing. Like, people are so scared to admit that they're wrong or that they don't know. And it's actually the greatest power you can have because you don't. So ask somebody who does, because you cannot possibly know everything.
And if you don't and you pretend, then you're not open to reading or hearing from somebody else. So you're not going to learn it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get better and improve. And you're not going to inspire those around you to learn. Right. And get better and improve.
And you're going to stress yourself out because you're so busy trying to essentially cover up a lie that it will eat away at you. And running a business and being an entrepreneur in and of itself is incredibly stressful, and it's incredibly time consuming. Is it incredibly rewarding? Yes. But don't add to the stress by pretending to be something you're not, or by trapping yourself into a lie. You're just going to make it worse, and you will eventually fail at it, or learn a very expensive lesson.
When I think too, like those times where you do admit you don't know, or you ask for help and you invite someone to join that process, building a trusting relationship, a committed relationship where you can't ever get to that depth without having said, you know what, I don't know, can we figure this out together? Can I have your help? As we had somebody on the podcast before said, don't rob somebody else of the joy of helping you out. And so that's what that makes me think of there. Yeah. I mean, a lot of good. I'm looking at my watch because I'm like, oh my gosh, we're almost at an hour. And we literally had not talked about, I'm sure some people are sitting here thinking, okay, franchising. Right. That sounds so cool. Yet, it seems probably hard. Like, yeah. I'm sure you have a lot of stories.
I do. A lot.
What is so appealing about franchising, and then what is the biggest obstacle or downfall or pitfall that once people get in, they come across?
So what is appealing to a lot of people when it comes to a franchise is this idea that it's commonly referred to as like a business in a box, right? Like you're not reinventing the wheel. The wheel's already there. It's already in place. You just got to run it. And to a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs, that's very enticing because otherwise they have to figure out everything on their own from scratch. And it's a lot, right? Like they don't even know, like, what state do I register for? Like there's a bunch of things that go into running a business, right? So the franchise element is appealing because it's the idea that you own your own business, but you're not in business by yourself. And that is what's so appealing to a lot of people. The downside is there's zero regulation in franchising. It's promoted that they're in a highly, quote unquote, highly regulated industry. There's zero regulation. I shouldn't say zero. There is what they were calling the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, has the amended franchise rule. So there is a rule that they're supposed to follow, right? The federal government said, here's the rule. Here's everything you're supposed to disclose to potential franchisees before they buy in what's called the franchise disclosure document, which we always call the FDD because it's way easier. So prospective franchisees are supposed to get an FDD with 23 disclosure items in it that they have to follow this quote unquote rule, right? The problem is there's nobody regulating the rule. And if the franchisors violate the rule, there's no private cause of action. So the only person who can sue for violating the rule is the Attorney General. And you have to screw over quite a few people for the Attorney General to even blink an eye at you, right? So it's touted as a highly regulated industry. It is not regulated at all.
So the franchisee can't even sue.
Correct.
The franchisor.
No, a lot of times. So I have actual cases on the regular where I know that what they put in that FDD is false or misleading or missing critical information. And the only reason I know that is because I have 20 years of experience doing it. But I know for a fact that there's missing information in there. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't sue because they didn't follow the FTC rule. Now, some states have, like Florida, for example, has a statute that says if you violate the FTC's amended franchise rule, it's considered an unfair and deceptive trade practice under the state law. Fantastic. That gives me something, right? But most states don't have it. So if they violate it, there's literally nothing I can do about it. And everybody's like, oh, well, you can sue for fraud. Wrong. Because your definition, our everyday definition of fraud, especially civil fraud, is vastly different than what you have to do to prove legal fraud. Your everyday common sense use of the word doesn't work in the actual legal world. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, listen, just because it's unethical, immoral, and plain wrong does not mean that it's illegal. And there are times where I've told people that you've legally been defrauded. And there's nothing I can do about it. Like it's terrible, but it's true. But yeah, that's, that would be the biggest misconception, is that it's regulated. The brokers, the consultants, the people selling the franchises to these individuals, not regulated at all. Real estate agents, vastly more regulated. The real estate market, vastly more regulated. Where franchises just kind of, and unfortunately, I will say that there are bad actors out there that have figured this out. And they make a lot of money off of screwing over a lot of people. There are some definite bad actors in the franchise industry, and I have been any soapbox I've ever gotten, I've been begging people in the franchise industry to pay attention, because they're going to destroy franchising. And for the good people too, because there's great franchisors out there, right? There's great franchise systems. But the bad ones, it's getting really bad. And unfortunately, ultimately what it boils down to when people come to me is a 200 to 300 page contract that's written not in their favor. And I'm stuck here going, how in the heck are we going to manipulate this so that I can get something out of it for you, right? Like, there's a reason. I tell clients all the time, there's a reason why there's not a lot of attorneys who do what I do. It's not easy. It's incredibly difficult. We are literally going to have an uphill battle here. But I truly believe that everybody deserves a voice. And after seeing so many franchisees over the years lose everything for contracts is very disheartening sometimes. But
what's the advice then to somebody who wants to look at getting into a franchise? Is it going to an attorney like you or someone in advance that specializes in franchise law and contracts to say?
Yes, 100%. It's so figuring out, you can use a consultant or a broker, and there's great ones out there where they can guide you. A good one will assess, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? One of the biggest questions I ask people when they are getting ready to start is, how much money can you stand to lose? Everybody thinks about how much money they're going to gain, right? Like, but how much can you lose? Because that's what you really need to assess. My job when I'm doing this stuff, I tell people all the time, your job is to assume everything's going to go great, right? This person trying to sell you the franchise, the franchisor, everybody assumes that everything's going to go well. My job is to bring you a little bit back down to reality, and I'm going to assume that everything is going to go terribly wrong. And then what? Because if you prepare for that, success is fine, right? And if you start to fail, you know where the options are and where the pushbacks are and what to do. And you can recognize when you're starting to fail too, which is a huge thing. But when I'm sitting there, you can use the consultants. A good one will assess all the values that you have, all your skills, and they'll kind of match you or give you some guidance on, here's what I think would be a good option for you. Then before you sign anything with the franchisor, you should get the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, and you should be bringing it to an attorney who specializes in franchise law. Not just any attorney, because in order to evaluate the agreement and the disclosure, you have to understand the dynamic of franchising. It is not a standard contract, and if you have an attorney that tells you it looks standard, you better run. And I mean run, because they're not standard. They are full. When a client hires me to do the FDD and franchise agreement review before they sign, I read every single word, every footnote, everything, because it's a bunch of legalese. So most people who read it get like 2 paragraphs in and they're like, I have no idea what I just read. And then they give up, right? Like, it's kind of like me reading medical charts. I have no idea what the heck that just said. I give up, right? So when I go through, I read it all. And I have a color coding system that I use so that when I give it back to the clients, they can actually see what I'm seeing, right? And the reason why I read every single word is because people hide stuff in the details, right? Like, crucial things are hidden on page 150 of 320. You have to read every single word because all of them matter. They are in there for a reason. So dig. And, just from 20 years of doing this, I can pick up on red flags that the average person reading the agreement could not pick up on. But that's just because of our experience doing this, right? And then after the consultation, so you definitely need an attorney who knows what their, it's franchise law, to evaluate before you sign, because you need to truly understand at the end of the day, if everything goes wrong, that's what the court's going to look at. They're not going to care or even ask you, or you're not even going to get to tell them, oh, well, they told me they were going to do this. They told me they were going to do that. Well, if they told you that, it should be in writing in the contract. So just guiding people through that process and making sure they truly understand it. Because it is a weird dynamic. Like, everybody's like, well, what franchise would you invest in? And I would not. And it's not because I don't believe in franchising. I 100% believe in the model. It's because I know myself. I do not follow rules well of others. There's a reason why I do things differently. And it's because that's my personality, right? Like, that's me. I don't if I want to close my door and not be open on Sunday, or if I want to do whatever, like, you don't have that luxury in a franchise. You follow the model. I am a personality type and a person that I like to create the model. So I will not buy a franchise because I'm not a good, like, that's just not, my skill set is not set for it, right? But there are plenty of people out there where their skill set is 100% set for it. But that's part of understanding franchising, right? Like, you have to understand what the relationship that you're getting into, because it is a relationship. At the end of the day, it is and we often use the analogy, some people hate it in the franchise world, but it's kind of like a marriage, except it's like this craziest prenuptial agreement you will ever sign. Because it literally goes over, if you fail, right? Like, it's, if you fail, you can't use my last name, right? Like, you're gonna have to rename your name. And if you fail, you can't lose, anything that was born out of this relationship is mine. You can't have it. If you fail, you owe me money. Like, this is legitimately what's in these contracts. If you fail, you can't, that's fine, but you can't date or do anything for 2 years because there's a non-compete, and I don't want anybody competing with me. So this is kind of like that weird, like, if you talked about that in a relationship, like in a marital relationship, nobody would ever sign that, right? They'd be like, screw off, I am not signing that. But they don't understand that when they're talking about a franchise relationship. So that's kind of what I guide them, just to make sure they truly understand this is the relationship that they're entering, and this is the contract that they're signing. And then once they do that, 1, they're going to be a better franchisee for the franchisor. And 2, they're going to be a better advocate for themselves, and they know exactly what they're doing, and they can get in and start working the model rather than getting in there floundering around a little bit. And quite frankly, a lot of the problems that I see, I don't always do litigation. Sometimes I step in and help the franchisee and the franchisor solve the problem, which I do pretty frequently. And a lot of it's just communication, right? Like, the franchisee has been told, oh, we're going to do this, you're going to do that, we're going to give you this support, we're going to do that. Their expectation of that is what they created in their own mind. The franchisor's expectation of what they are going to provide is vastly different. So it's that, for example, we talked about this where semi-absentee. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? Part-time to me is probably 30 hours. Part-time to other people could be 15. Right? Does semi-absentee mean part-time? What does it mean? And that's where you run into the issues, is because the franchisee has a different definition of what assistance means, or what semi-absentee means, or absentee, or advertising, or marketing. They have different definitions than the franchisor. And once those things start coming to a head, it gets out of control real quick. And then I often will step in, and even though I'm on the franchisee side, one of my jobs is to get them to understand the franchisor side, right? Like, where are they coming from, and why can't they do certain things for you. And it's because you're one of many. So just getting people to understand dynamics so that you can find a common ground and move forward is a lot of what I do, because so it is actually pretty similar to marriage counseling.
I was going to say, or any almost relationship, right? It's that communication is so key, and it's the definitions or the details from both sides and the clarity and the, getting to that detailed level of, you say I need to delegate more.
Yep.
Okay, I think I'm delegating. What do you mean by delegate? What do I think it is? And so that at the end of the day, the client, the customer, whoever still gets the right product and the best service, etc. And so if we stay on these up in the clouds, higher level communication comments, it's just going to rumble underneath until we can get into that, clarify, communicate it all out, whatever the right words are, and understand from both sides. Then I think only until you get to that common ground understanding can you move forward and hopefully on that track to success. Because until then,
100%.
You're just going to live in that back and forth area of yes, maybe not, I'm not sure.
And there's so much frustration on both sides, right? Like one side is like, oh, I feel like I'm going above and beyond. And the other side feels like I'm losing everything and you're not doing enough. And I truly believe the answer is always in the middle. It's understanding what somebody else is thinking and what they're going through and what things they have to obtain and meet, and then vice versa, right? Like franchisors need to learn from the franchisees. They truly need to, and they need to adapt. Where the franchisees need to understand the role of the franchisor, right? Like it's kind of like, in this analogy I'm going to use, like it's kind of like the child parent, right? Like the franchisor is telling you one thing and you're like, I don't want to do that thing. I don't understand why I have to do it. And they're going, because I told you so. Like that's literally how it happens.
But, things have changed since you were, my age and da-da-da-da. And it's different in the real world, in that real world application.
Yeah. Like it is quite funny. Like the last one I did was very much like that. It was because I told you so. And I'm like, okay, not helpful. Like you have to explain like why, because if you do, they will then understand like, oh, okay, that makes way more, and which is exactly what happened. And then they, knock on wood somewhere, they've been working together brilliantly ever since then.
It's the why, the intent. It's that opening up, asking questions, being curious to understand, and not assuming you know it all. You have all the facts, and just fall in line and do what I say because I said it, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
All those pieces. We so much great conversation, and we've talked so long we could keep talking. But what I want to know, and you kind of partially answered earlier, so who are the good ones out there? You may not go into franchising, which I think was a great comment earlier, because you know your skill set and it wouldn't work. Right. But what are the ones, and can you say, and maybe I'm not going to ask you the bad ones, but feel free to say if you want to. I figured you probably won't want to or can't. But maybe we flip it to the other side, and what are the ones out there that are doing it right?
Here's my caveat. I don't promote anyone in particular, because I don't. What is working today? The problem is these are long-term relationships, and it even though like Chick-fil-A, for example, might be a great franchise for somebody, and they do have a good model, and I think part of the reason why they're so successful with their models is they don't oversell or oversaturate a market, and they retain some ownership of so that it's like a hybrid. So the franchisor actually owns part of the actual location with the franchisee, which gives them some skin in the game, right? So one thing to remember with this franchising is it's not just the franchisor that you're in this relationship with. The franchisor controls everything. It controls all your vendors. It controls all your suppliers. It makes money off of every single sale that you make. and they usually make money off of every single purchase they require you to purchase. So it creates this really weird dynamic, and it can create a, what's the word I want to, it can create an environment where the franchisor is becomes predatory, because they are making money off of every sale and every expense, and that's all they're looking at. When the franchisor has skin in the game, like Chick-fil-A, they obviously care about how much the expenses are because it affects them, right? So it creates a different dynamic. There's obviously like the higher dollar ones are because the trademark, they don't have to do much advertising, right? Like Marriott hotels don't have to do much advertising. They have a pretty strong following, right? McDonald's don't have to do much advertising. You see the golden arches when you're driving down the highway and you get off at the next exit. Like they have spent so much time and money building up a consumer following that they can charge a higher dollar amount for their franchises because they don't have to, they're well developed, right? That what becomes more appealing to people are the lower dollar amounts. Because they're just starting out, right? And they want to make an investment. Those are the ones you have to be extra cautious on, especially newer franchise systems, because they've never been a franchisor before, or they've been for a very short amount of time. So it's a catch-22 in that I don't really promote like one particular brand. I don't say, oh, this one's fantastic, right? There are certain ones that if you slid the FDD across the table for me, you're like, oh, I'm considering this, I'd slide it right back and be like, absolutely not. That like I could name endless ones, but pretty much if you look at any of our websites, any blog I've ever written about people we've sued would give you a really good hint as to what not to buy. But there are certain franchise consultant companies that I call the kiss of death. The second that franchise consultant company starts selling a certain franchise, I can assure you that people from that franchise system will be calling my office within 2 years. And every single one of them fails. But so there's certain things where like just somebody with my experience or another attorney with a lot of franchise experience, we will just innately know because our feet and our pulse is within the franchise community, right? Like
you're living in it
all the time. So I generally know bad ones real quick. And I'll often tell people, they're like, how much for you to look at this? I go, I can tell you for free that the answer is no. Just no, don't do it. Find another one.
Well, that's an interesting lesson, I think, in what you do or anything in general, right? If you're looking to make a move, a change, especially with something that could impact, which, I mean, honestly, in your career, a new job, a new position could impact your happiness, your financial well-being, your relationships, your marriage, your, mindset, all those things you were talking about earlier. Doing a little bit of due diligence up front is worth the time, the energy, and the cost. And you may not even see that for years to come, potentially. Hey, you may be lucky. You may have picked the right thing out of the gate, but doing some more research up front, finding those people who are either experts or the law clerk or the paralegal to ask and maybe think about it from a different perspective, worth the investment, can save you from so much along the way.
I can tell you 100% of the clients who have come to me after they've already signed a franchise agreement and are running into issues, literally 100% of them say, I wish I would have just came to you first. Every single time. Every single one has said it. And I was like, I wish you would have too, because it's far cheaper for me to tell you not to do it than to be like, okay, you did it. Now we have to figure out the best of the bad options. Because that is another thing people don't realize with franchises. When you run your own business and you fail, it ends with you, right? Like you can shut down your business, you can shut down, stop the bleeding, so to speak, right? When you're in a franchise system, you can't just shut down. You're stuck in a contract, and you're stuck in a long-term contract. And if you close early, they can sue you for the remainder of the contract. So I have this client right now who is 1 year in to a 10-year contract. Oof. If he were to close and just close without the franchisor permission and anything else, the franchisor can sue them for the 9 remaining years. So it's not just a business in a box. It truly is a long-term relationship, and you have to understand what you're getting into, and does it make sense for you? It does make sense for a lot of people. It's just making sure it makes sense for you. So it's definitely, you are definitely right. It makes a huge difference to prepare and hire experts who truly know what they're doing, to really help you make the decision of whether or not you actually want to do that investment, because it's a major investment. It is not a minor investment.
We could keep going, as I mentioned, probably more than once, forever. All great information, and we didn't even touch upon all the pieces of your story, but I think so much good stuff for people out there who, maybe don't know what the future holds for them in 10, 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. Hey, open yourself up to learning different opportunities. You don't know where it will take you and your passions and how you will thrive. Yeah. So don't own the end. Thoughts on leadership and helping people along the way, and asking for help, and taking some of those hats off along the way when you can, and instead of pulling people up, teaching them how to climb up the ladder with you. Information on law, franchises, all different sorts of things. Perseverance, grit, pouring into yourself, being yourself, knowing who that is, being different, thinking outside the box, asking people. Wow, so much good information. At the end of the day, if people want to find you, work with you, get your consultation, where does everyone, we know we have 3 different businesses now, 3 different websites. What's the best way to find you?
Probably the best and easiest way is just look up Fortman Spann or search Kelly Spann, and find one of the 3 websites. It doesn't really matter. Either way, if you contact me, I will, if you contact me at Fortman Spann and you're a TM Law client, it's not a big deal. They're all in-house, but I'm literally everywhere. I have every single firm has their own social media handles, their own everything. I've got videos out there all over the place. So if you ever want to learn anything on franchise, there's tons of videos out there. Trademark and copyright, tons of videos. Even estate planning and probate, tons of videos. I try to give everybody the basic education in words and that they can understand, right? Because I tell people there's a whole art to translating legalese into everyday language without sounding condescending or like you're talking down to somebody, right? And I just happen to be generally pretty good at it. So I just tell people in everyday terms like what these things are and what they actually mean, because we use a lot of fancy words for some very basic things.
I can understand that in my industry too. So even if you don't need her, but you want to learn more because you heard the podcast and you're like, I don't know everything. Yeah. I need to learn more. I want to learn more. Yeah. Check her out, find her. Thank you for just being willing to come on, share your story. I'm sure somebody will connect with at least something you said today and be like, I resonate. That resonates with me, and see how successful she is. I'm going to keep going and I'll get to where I want to get one day too. So thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit SheLiftProject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.